Okay, imagine this. A disease we thought we knew pretty well, its origin story sort of set, yeah. And then suddenly, its whole timeline just gets rewritten.
Right.
That's exactly what we're doing a deep dive on today. A really fascinating scientific discovery that, well, it challenges everything we thought we knew about Hansen's disease or, you know, leprosy in the
Yeah,
Americas.
for centuries, the standard view was that leprosy was strictly a European import,
Uh-huh.
only arriving after colonial contact.
Hmm.
And that was mostly because you just didn't see those distinct skeletal markers,
Uh-huh.
the sort of telltale bone changes
Yeah,
in pre-contact American remains.
right. No bones, no disease, basically.
Kind of the thinking, yeah.
Hmm.
But this deep dive, well, it's going to reveal evidence that totally flips that perspective.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack this really surprising scientific revelation. It unearths a much older history, previously unknown, for one type of leprosy in the Americas.
And all thanks to ancient DNA research.
Exactly. Cutting-edge stuff. Get ready for a bit of an aha
Hmm.
moment, you know? It completely redefines how we see ancient American health.
Okay, I'm ready. So maybe let's just start by clarifying what Hansen's disease actually is.
Good idea.
It's a chronic illness, right?
Yeah.
Can lead to physical impairment, and it's caused by bacteria. Now, for ages, the main one we knew about globally was Mycobacterium leprae.
The classic one.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a second, more recently identified bacterium that also causes it. It's rarer, called Mycobacterium lepromatosis.
That's the one.
And maybe it's worth saying, people might think of leprosy as ancient history, but it's still around, affects people in over 100 countries today. It is treatable, but getting that treatment isn't always straightforward everywhere.
Absolutely. And that traditional historical view, it focuses almost entirely on M. leprae. The general belief is that it originated somewhere in Eurasia, maybe around 7,000 years ago.
Okay.
Which, interestingly, that timeline lines up pretty well with the Neolithic transition.
So like the beginnings of farming, settling down.
Precisely. Rise of agriculture, animal domestication, these huge societal shifts.
Mhm.
And it's a period where we also see other major infectious diseases emerging, things like plague, tuberculosis, typhoid fever.
Right, crowded conditions, maybe?
Yeah.
New interactions with animals?
Likely factors, yeah. And the archaeological evidence, those bone changes you mentioned earlier, they supported its presence in Europe, Asia, Oceania, way back, like 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So it really seemed to cement that old world origin story.
Okay, so that's the established picture. Now here comes the twist, right? Because studying ancient diseases in the Americas, well, it's always been tough.
Definitely.
We know so much less about what diseases were around before colonization, partly because, as you said, the bone signs can be vague, and also, frankly, the wave of European diseases that came later. It just sort of overwhelmed everything, didn't it? It made it super hard to see what was there before.
It really did. Kind of like static drowning out an older signal.
Exactly. But this is where ancient DNA comes in. It's become a real game changer. Kirsten Boss from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, she leads their molecular paleopathology group.
Yeah, they do amazing work.
She basically says ancient DNA has become a great tool that allows us to dig deeper into diseases that have had a long history in the Americas.
And she's absolutely right. It's letting us see things we just couldn't before. And this is where her team, working with researchers in Argentina and Chile, made this incredible find.
Okay, tell us about it.
They found genetic signatures related to leprosy. But here's the kicker. They found them in skeletons from Chile, specifically from the El Cerrito and La Herradura archaeological sites.
Wow, and how old?
About 4,000 years old. 2 adult males.
4,000 years. Okay, that's a long before European contact.
Exactly. And Dario Ramirez, who actually first spotted the signature, he said they were initially suspicious.
I bet.
Yeah, because like we said, leprosy was seen as purely a colonial-era disease in the Americas.
So what did they find? Not the usual suspect.
Not M. leprae, no. They found Mycobacterium lepromatosis,
The rarer one.
the rarer one. And crucially, its ancient genome, its DNA sequence from that long ago, had never been found before. This was the first time.
Incredible.
And the DNA itself was apparently in amazing shape. Leslie Sitter, one of the researchers, called the preservation amazing, uncommon in ancient DNA, especially from specimens of that age.
So just really good luck with preservation.
Partly that, but also the techniques they use now. They're so advanced they can sort of look beyond the suspects. They can search for diseases that maybe wouldn't be expected in that context.
Ah, okay. So they weren't just looking for M. leprae and stopping there.
Right. They cast a much wider net. And it's worth noting, This same team, not long ago, found evidence suggesting the syphilis family of diseases also has deep roots in the Americas. So they're really rewriting some medical history here.
Wow. Okay, let's unpack this then. This finding. It just completely shifts our understanding, doesn't it? Detecting 4,000-year-old M. lepromatosis in Chile. It directly contradicts that idea that leprosy only arrived with colonizers.
It absolutely does. Throws it right out. But it gets even more interesting when you look at the genetics, the evolution.
Okay.
Genomic comparisons, looking at the DNA sequences, they suggest M. lepromatosis and M. leprae have really different evolutionary histories, very separate paths.
How different?
Well, remember we said M. leprae seems to have kind of come together, coalesced around 7,000 years ago in Eurasia.
Yeah.
For M. lepromatosis, the estimates for its most recent common ancestor go way further back, like 26,800 years ago.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the lineages associated with humans seem to have diverged, branched off around 12,600 years ago.
That is a massive difference in timescale compared to M. leprae.
Huge. And think about what was happening around that 12,600 year mark. We're talking the Pleistocene-Holocene transition.
End of the last ice age, basically.
Exactly. Global warming, big ice sheets receding. This opened up huge swaths of land, especially in the Americas. It enabled significant human movement, exploration, migration across the continent.
Okay, I see where this is going. More movement, more contact between groups.
Right. And potentially new opportunities for infectious diseases to emerge, maybe jump species, and certainly spread among these interconnected human groups.
So does this mean M. lepromatosis started in the Americas? Or did it derive even earlier with the very first people?
That's the million-dollar question, really. Two main hypotheses. Did it originate in the Americas? Or did it arrive with some of the first waves of settlers coming from Eurasia, much, much earlier than we ever thought for leprosy? Right now, the evidence leans a bit towards an American origin. But honestly, we need more ancient genomes from different places and times to be really sure.
But if it did originate in the Americas, that would be pretty significant, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It would make it one of only a handful of global diseases that we know emerged from the Americas. A very different story.
That really is profound. Okay, so thinking about this today, does this change how we think about transmission? Like, are humans the only ones carrying these bacteria, or are animals involved?
Great question. And it brings us straight to this idea of One Health.
Right, the concept that human health, animal health, and the environment are all linked.
Exactly.
Okay.
We can't really understand one without considering the others. And we do know about some animal connections with Hansen's disease already.
The armadillos, right?
Yep, the 9-banded armadillo in the Americas is famous for carrying M. leprae. And there's evidence suggesting human contact, maybe even eating them, could be a route of transmission in some areas.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, more recently, researchers found both M. leprae and M. lepromatosis in red squirrels.
Squirrels? Where?
In the UK and Ireland. And interestingly, they've even found ancient M. leprae DNA in medieval red squirrel bones from England.
So squirrels were carrying it back then, too. Fascinating.
It is. But here's the curious part regarding the Americas and M. lepromatosis. While we now have this ancient human evidence from Chile, and we know M. lepromatosis is common in humans today in places like Mexico and Brazil, it hasn't actually been found in armadillos there, even though armadillos in those same regions do carry M. leprae.
Huh. That's weird. So armadillos carry one type but not the other, even where both types exist in humans.
Seems that way so far. And adding another layer, those 4,000-year-old individuals from Chile, they lived outside the known current or historical range of armadillos anyway.
So the armadillo connection doesn't seem to fit for this ancient M. lepromatosis discovery.
Not directly, no. It really highlights that we still have a lot to figure out about its origin, its history, and potential animal reservoirs or zoonotic transmission routes in the Americas. It definitely tells us we need to look more broadly, surveil more wild animal populations for both types of leprosy bacteria, really all over the world.
There's always more to learn, as you say. So this deep dive, it's really shown us how just one discovery, powered by this incredible ancient DNA technology, can just completely flip our understanding of a disease's history, pushing its roots back thousands of years further than we imagined and suggesting this whole other narrative for its presence in the Americas. It's like finding a whole hidden chapter in the history books.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder, isn't it? That history, especially the history of disease, it's not static. It's constantly being revised, rewritten, especially with these new scientific tools.
And the work isn't finished here, I gather.
Not at all. As Rodrigo Norris, one of the researchers from Argentina, put it, now that we know it was there, we can specifically look for it in other contexts.
Right. Search other ancient remains specifically for M. lepromatosis.
Exactly. We need more genomes, ancient ones, modern ones, from humans, from animals, to really piece together the full picture. Its global spread, its evolution, its zoonotic potential. It really challenges us to rethink how these pathogens move and adapt across vast timescales and between species.
So, maybe a final thought for you listening. Just consider what other ancient disease stories might still be buried, hidden beneath the surface, especially in the Americas, just waiting for that next scientific breakthrough. What other unexpected links between our health, animal populations, and those long ago human journeys are still out there waiting to be uncovered? Makes you think, doesn't it?